Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're here with another project. We haven't done any build videos for a while, just been busy flying and enjoying the summer. We haven't done any since the T-38, which thankfully is still in one piece. And I have a number of projects that I want to get going here. This is the next one, obviously, it's on the bench. Two other projects that I really want to get, well, a few others that I want to get done. I really want to finish my jet hangar A4. And I want to finish my jet hanger F86. And there's the washer going, in case you couldn't tell again. I need to get this dang thing in the air and then repaint it. I'm having landing gear issues still, and I'm waiting on another air cylinder to see if I can get the problem fixed. And then one of these days I got to finish this thing and fix it. But anyways, back to this. This is the Bell X-1. Not many people have modeled this airplane, and certainly none have done it in the way that we're about to do it here. So typically when you see an X1, obviously the real X1 was rocket powered, so that's fairly difficult to do with a model. Other options would be a turbine or a fan, or say a pusher prop. Turbines out of the question, just money wise. Pusher props out of the question just because it would be the easiest way, honestly, to just put a prop on the back. But to me, you lose a little bit of something there. There's just sticking a prop on the back makes it easy, makes it light, makes it perform well. There's tons of positives to going with a pusher prop setup. It's just the looks kind of kill it for me. And in this particular model, with the low landing gear, you really don't have any prop clearance at all, so that makes it difficult for this one. And so that leaves us with either a rocket or a glider or a fan. So I talked my friend Paul Stelly into helping me with this project. He designed this and got it to this stage. So I haven't measured it. I think it's 58 inches long. It's a good size. That doesn't sound very big, but you gotta remember, this thing is like 10 inches in diameter. It's huge. It's a big fat model. I got a big hand, so it makes it look kind of small, but this is what, an 8-foot table? So it's a good size. He designed it in CAD, CNC cut it on his router, and then designed a number of 3D printed parts. So you're wondering, a couple of the big issues with the X1, aside from being rocket powered, is the landing gear, and then obviously for a ducted fan, the air for the fan. We went over a bunch of different ideas when we were first brainstorming this airplane. Do we do like, suck-in doors underneath the wings so they're not so noticeable, or say like just a big cheater hole or a bunch of vents on it and stuff. And those all take away from the looks of the model. And when it's flying, you don't want to see it's orange, so you would notice a giant hole really, really well. So didn't want to do that either. And so we came up with this idea to use the cockpit as the inlet. So with this canopy frame, from a distance, you really wouldn't be able to tell that there's no canopy there. But basically, what this creates is a huge inlet. So I'll take this apart in a second to show you guys the inside, because it's not glued together yet. But basically the duct runs all the way across the top and then down to the fan. So I think it's going to work really well. And originally we had decided to use a Freewing 8-bladed fan, and those are great power units. But I recently started using these E-flite / FMS fans in my jets, in my 80mm size jets. I have one in the Skyray. It's actually the older 2000 kV version. This is the 2100 out of the F-16. I've been super impressed with these. They're quiet, they're smooth, tons of power. It pushes that F-16 around with zero ducting, way better than it should. So I really like these, so I'm going to end up using one of these fans. And then we have the Avion 130 amp ESC, which is actually out of the Viper jet, out of the 90mm Viper jet. I'm using this because I like the headroom of having the bigger ESC, and so these normally would use like 100 amp, but I'm really digging all the telemetry stuff with these ESCs. So I have one, the T-38 now, which is really cool because I can monitor batteries and stuff and temperatures while I'm flying FPV, so I can keep track on that and I can stay up longer than I think I can just because I can monitor it. So it's really neat. So having that technology is super cool, and with the iX-20 it makes it really easy to use all that. So I love this technology, so I'm kind of putting it in all of my newer airplanes. Um, Anyways, so it's going to have this fan. We got this ducting is, you know, haven't done the math yet, but it's definitely big enough. I'm going to have to do a lot of things this model. Paul is just like any of the rest of us. He's got a billion projects going at once. He got to this point and was kind of like, hey, I got all these other projects going. Do you want to finish it? And I said, absolutely. The Bell X-1 is probably one of my favorite airplanes of all times. And because it's so rarely modeled, it makes it really special, just because you never see them. You know, when you show up to the field with a scratch-built F-16, no one's going to care, because there's a billion F-16s in the world. And while they do fly great and they look great, it's not a special airplane. This is a special airplane. I grew up in the 80s, and The Right Stuff, if you haven't seen that movie, made like a huge impact on me as a child, just seeing all the models they used to make the X-1 scenes and everything. And growing up with my dad telling me stories about Chuck Yeager and all his exploits and his adventures, just created this image in my mind of what a 1940s, 1950s test pilot was. And, you know, the movie The Right Stuff obviously painted that as kind of like a cowboyish figure, you know, but it's just really cool. So anyways, the X-1 is just, it's a really neat airplane. Obviously the first airplane to officially break the sound barrier, although there's people saying that there was other airplanes that did it first, but officially it's the X-1, so take that. So the whole idea here is, so we're going to have the inlet. The battery should be right up here in this area, so I'm going to have wood and stuff. So Paul got to this stage. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done still. Some stuff I'm going to change probably. Originally we decided just to do a one-piece model, which sounded fine until I saw it in person and it was like, this is a pretty big model. Getting this thing in the car in one piece with a straight wing is going to be a bit of a chore. So you can see just how wide the fuselage is. These are the fuselage lines right here. It is super wide. So I got a couple of sleeve and tube carbon spars here. Obviously I'm not going to use two huge ones all the way down, but I'm going to put one big one in here and then a second smaller one in the back. I'm going to do all that before I cut the wing up. So I'm going to have, to where the wings can come off, which will be a huge help for transporting. A couple other things. The stab, the wings and the tails on the X-1 are super thin. The servos kind of stick out on this, and I'm not entirely sure it's an accurate stab, so I think the real X-1 has a little bit of taper on the backside, and I want to say that the elevators are actually pretty much straight across on that hinge line. So I think I might make a solid balsa stab with the scale elevator setup, and then I'll put I'll use one servo with a joiner, and then I'll put the servo maybe in the fuselage with a push rod and like a access hatch or something. And I might do the same for the rudder, although this setup should work just fine. But the control horn I'm going to have to change because that's not really going to work. There's just a few things I'm going to have to kind of update and change. On the real X-1, the flaps went down to almost 90 degrees. And the way these are set up, I won't be able to do that, especially with the horn and everything. So I got to change a few things. Not a huge deal, just little stuff. Okay, now, Paul is the landing gear genius. He has done some really neat landing gear for a bunch of different airplanes over the years. All the way back in the 90s, a number of glow-power ducted fan jets. He helped do B-58 landing gear, F-104, U-2, a ton of different airplanes, F-101, all stuff that's super complicated, and he's a very smart man, and he just knows how to figure stuff out. So, one of the biggest issues with the X-1, especially if you're going to take off from the ground, is landing gear. And to do it scale, well, no one makes landing gear scale for an X-1, obviously. Otherwise, there might be a bunch of them flying out there. Pretty much every X-1 you've ever seen as a model is a free drop from a bomber or a carrier plane, which is really cool because that's how the real one did it. Although Chuck Yeager one time took off the X-1 from the ground under its own power, went Mach 1 and came around and landed just to show the Navy that they could do it. So technically taking off from the ground is a scale maneuver for the X-1. But the landing gear is the big hurdle with the X-1. Now you see this huge area cut out right here. That's where the landing gear goes. Check this out, guys. This is super freaking cool. So Paul went through a number of different variations to get this working. These are all designed by him, 3D printed parts, and even the metal shocks are actually handmade. He's a machinist. The man does everything. He's a builder. He's a flyer. He's a great friend, and I have really enjoyed getting to know Paul over the last few years and working with him on a couple projects. His last one was the Grumman F11 Tiger, which also has a super complicated landing gear. So Paul's designed this, so that's cool because it's got the real one kind of had camber like that when the gear were down. So it's got shock absorbing gear, and the real one, I mean, he looked at pictures and studied and tried to figure out everything, but this is very close to scale. Super neat. So we got these big fat tires, which the real X1 had big old fat tires on it, well, compared to the airplane. But let's check this out. So everything tucks up in real nice. These are just small servos, but the load is not on the servo when the gear are down. So when the gear are down, see if you can see it. There's an upper arm in there, and so when the arms go over center, or when the shock goes over center, there's a pin in there that upper arm rests on. So now all the load is through the axle, through that shock, and to that upper mount with that pin. That's not going anywhere. And this model isn't going to be super heavy. We're hoping to keep it around 8.5 pounds at the most. It's not a lot of wing area, so it's going to be a hot rod just like the real one. But this should be able to handle the weight just fine. So I'm probably going to make this to where I can unbolt it and pull it out so we can work on the gear if we have to, because if you glue this in and something breaks or something goes wrong, you're going to have a heck of a time fixing it. So he also made 3D printed doors for it, super lightweight. This is 3D printed. Now it's a bummer because the exhaust isn't fully scale and shaped. You can see, so the real one has 4 rockets obviously, and it has like bumps on the tops, bottoms, and sides. Even at this size, having a big enough tailpipe for a fan was difficult. So there is a little bit of a scale change here to make the tailpipe work, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And let's be real, this isn't going to Top Gun. This is a semi-scale for enjoyment kind of an airplane. We're not going to compete with this or anything. So it's just a model I've always wanted to build and fly, and Paul's helping that dream come true. So Paul and his friend John, well, my friend John, he helped Paul with this a little bit as well. So those guys are like the dream team when it comes to making really cool scratch built stuff. So my hat's off to them. This is the first video of this. We got a lot of work to do. So every year we go to the St. George Electric Festival, named after my friend John Morgan, who passed away. So John was kind of like our godfather, let's say, of this group. And if you know anything about John, you know he was a prolific scratch builder. I have a few of his models on my wall here. Amazing man, great craftsman. And he kind of started this group. Well, we still get together once a year. We've been doing it in St. George since 2016, I believe. So anyways, so every year, there's at least 3 to 4 scratch built airplanes that get maidened at this event every year. So my phone just died from overheating. It's 92 degrees in here. Heat sucks. So anyways, this event I was just talking about is St. George, Utah. 3 to 4 at a minimum scratch built airplanes show up every year. just a bunch of great guys that are super talented. In fact, this year there's going to be a ton of scratch built airplanes showing up that are new for this year's event. So that's in late September. So I have about 2 months to finish this model completely, painted, everything. It won't fly until we get there because I want to be there with Paul and John, so they can see it fly. So we can get, there's guys that show up. We got our friend Ben and John Cohn that show up and take videos, and there's other guys too that take videos and pictures. And so it's just a neat experience. It's neat to share with everyone else. So the goal here is to get this thing finished for that event. The T-38 is new for this year. If I can get the Talon Sport finished for Bentley, that'll be there this year too. That's 3 scratch builds just from me. I know Paul is also building another one of my dream airplanes right now, which is the XB-42, which is a twin-engine bomber that used a pusher prop configuration with 2 Allison motors mounted in the center of the fuselage. It's a really cool looking airplane, and it also has very difficult landing gear, which Paul has also designed. It's super cool. He's hopefully going to have that finished. My friend Andy has scratch built a T-38, and he's scratch built an almost half-scale BD-5 for FPV flying, and it's amazing. And my friend Justin's doing a scratch built composite jet. There's a couple other guys bringing scratch built airplanes. It's going to be really cool. So anyways, this video has gone on way too long, but this is the intro. I hope you guys like this project. There's going to be plenty more videos coming on this. So hope you guys like it. If you love aviation like me, you're probably going to freak out because the X-1 is just one of those airplanes that's super cool, tons of history, and it's just rarely modeled. So to see it with scale landing gear and at a decent size with scale wings and tails and everything else, you know, it's going to be really neat, I think. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. Tune in for the next episode on the X-1 build, hopefully in a week. By next weekend I'll have some progress to show you guys. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.